Good afternoon, Professor Sturm. My name is David, as you all know, and my topic was campaign funding and the corruption within. My main focus for this is going to be government corruption and how public funding will fix government corruption. My table of contents will be background on public funding for campaigns. I'll touch on the definition of corruption in itself. I will have my thesis statement, and then I will continue to brush into my main points, which my three main points of my paper were allowing candidates to run without enough resources, benefits of the American Anti-Corruption Act, disclosing campaign contributions to reduce corruption, solutions moving forward, and then I'll have my conclusion along with my references. So to start off, a little background on public funding in itself. In 1971, the government decided to start the fight against corruption firsthand with the Campaign Act of 1971. This act was put into place to alleviate private investors from making extra contributions to sway the candidates of their choosings into winning elections for personal gain. Next, I'm going to touch on a little bit about the corruption and the definition. The definition of corruption is a dishonest or illegal behavior, especially by powerful people such as government officials or police officers. An example of corruption is currently at this time the President of the United States is under proceedings for impeachment for manipulating foreign governments into looking into his opposing candidates' past for personal gain. Just like as many as you well know, the government, like I said, the president is currently being, as of yesterday, has impeachment paperwork has started. Corruption in the United States is not what we need in any way. So I'm going to kick off starting with my first main point, and this is allowing the candidates to run without having enough resources. And I'm just going to touch a little bit about the disbenefits of having candidates who don't have enough resources. Except for the presidential race, most political races do not get much publicity. This is especially true at the municipal level, where candidates cannot raise enough money for advertisements and big public speeches. This leaves the door open for private investors to shower big contributions in order to gain access and shape policy. Currently, the municipal campaigns are not eligible for public funding due to not having enough tax dollars and contributions allocated from the government. So essentially, anyone who's running for some type of treasurer, town governor, mayor of a smaller town, they're not allocated public funding due to the government not allowing them to have any money for them for their advertisements as such and so forth. Currently, municipal campaigns are not eligible for public funding due to not having enough tax dollars and contributions allocated from the government. As I previously stated, the WFP, Working Families Party, has been working with Washington, D.C. City Hall to allow the funding from the public for lower level campaigns such as the municipal levels. In 2018, the vote was unanimous in deciding to establish a new public campaign finance program throughout all elections. So this essentially is going to allow or put a standard on municipal elections and allow candidates who don't necessarily have all the money in the world to advertise and to get their name out there with signs and posters, so without having to go raise money, because most of the time these candidates are out trying to raise money rather than getting their name out there, which will hinder them obviously in the type of running for whatever they're running for government wise. So next, I'll move to my second talking point. That is the benefits of the American Anti-Corruption Act. Corruption in America has had many impacts on different aspects of the culture in America today, starting with the political bribery, secret money within campaigns, and broken elections. In combating these three reactions of corruption, the government created an act called the American Anti-Corruption Act. Within this act, there is a common goal of the whole AACA, which is to strengthen the enforcement of the anti-corruption in the government. So essentially, this act is bringing the main focus of corruption to a government level standpoint, to where now we have an act in place. Things have to get done this way. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't beat around the bush. This is how the rules will go. And if you do get caught with corruption, this is the consequences you may suffer. And within this act in place, it helps prove that if every candidate was to use public funding instead of primarily private investors, then it leaves little to no room for corruption to occur. And I don't mean to sound unjust about this, but it's kind of common sense. If they receive money from the government and that's all their allocations for their campaign salary has to come from, then they don't need to reach out and to reach their big funders for money, and that will lead to not having corruption within the government, or will help at least subside from most of the government corruption. Moving on to my third and final talking point: disclosing campaign contributions to reduce corruption. Transparency within contributions for campaigns has not been in the limelight of society. There's many ways that transparency has reduced corruption throughout the government. One way is the electorate was able to identify where all campaign funds came from and what is being used for. The second is disclosure helped to deter actual corruption and avoid the appearance of corruption by exposing large contributions and expenditures to the light of publicity. So essentially, this is stating that we make every contribution that is given in any type of campaign publicized and available to the public to just pretty much look at, and just to know where that money is actually coming from and where is it going to and what's it allocated to. Is it going to commercials? Is it going to ad posters? Is it going to speeches? Is it going to your travel payments? There's a lot of different things that go into campaigning, but this is the transparency is bringing the allowance of the public's eye and knowledge up forth. Along with those two contributions, there was one more key moment, and that is the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971, which was proven to bring many benefits to the public with the closed information. And previously stated, as I did before, this is the act that helped disclose all that information of campaign to the public. Moving next on to my solution. My solution to combating corruption in America is to utilize the public funding aspect for all campaigns, whether they be municipal or presidential. This will at least lower the chances for corruption to take place by making sure all candidates' campaign funds are provided by the government. And as I was talking about before, this is essentially a very big key point in corruption in today, in campaigning and just in general. I know there's other aspects of corruption, but in the campaigning aspect of it, if everyone receives money from government funding, then there will be no need to reach out to your big sourced investors. In conclusion, the measures taken in order to reduce the number of corrupted individuals and campaigns has been primarily positive. With that being said, I feel that these different congressional acts and regulations on corruption would be better utilized or even curbed with the use of public funding. Corruption throughout the United States has come from the depths of city and town mayors to even the President of the United States for decades. And with that being said, here are my references, and that is it. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.